Oh, look at that. All right. Well, we're past time, I guess. Otherwise, I was going to ask you to go out and, bring in some friends and relatives, 10 minutes, but I guess we're going to have to go ahead. So too bad about them. Anyway, all right. So thank you for being here. I'm sure we'll be blessed. And yeah. Would you like to pray? Would you like me to pray? Okay. Let's just pray. Father in heaven, thank you so much for the wealth of information and knowledge you've given your people. Thank you for the way you lead in the lives of human beings, such as Nathan here. And please bless us, continue with us, inspire us, and teach us in this time this afternoon. We pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen. Okay. If we could turn on that. There we go. Wonderful. Okay. So one of the things that I've grown to appreciate is exercise. It was a huge factor in my recovery. And as I've gone along and so I worked in California with the depression recovery program out there. What do you know? They had me, they put me in charge of exercise and monitoring it for people, which is a perfect fit for me. And what I have discovered is it can be a little bit difficult to get people started. And in general, they think they can't do it, but almost always they can. So I will, in that 10-day program, I'll watch them for 3 days. And then I will give them a steps goal. Everybody gets a fitness band. So I have them download that, and then I can look at everybody's steps. I get an idea of where they're at in terms of their age, fitness, and then I give them a steps goal, and that's going to be what they need to get on a daily basis. I say, here's your daily steps goal. Now, quite a bit of the time they look at that and go, something like that. And I go, you can do it. And they're like, I don't think so. No. So 7 days later, what are they doing? This is what they usually do. They don't usually say anything to me after they've reached their goal. They just put their watch up like this, press the button, go look. I'm like, I told you. Now I'm going to have to raise your steps goal again. No, I say that, but I never do that. But I have some fun with them. Yes, we can do a lot more than what we think. And is it important? Actually, it is very important. Now, this first slide here is a general slide. This is about mortality. So let's look at this. So up there, you see relative risk of death from any cause in minutes per week of exercise. So those who are sedentary, that's 0. They're getting 0 minutes of exercise per week. They're not doing anything. Their relative risk is 100 because it's relative to themselves. It doesn't mean 100% of them are going to die from any cause prematurely. It just means compared to themselves, it's 100. Okay, so if we go up one category from up to 74 minutes per week, where does that line go? Goes down, right? Goes down to maybe about 60 to 75%, depending on whether you're doing moderate exercise or vigorous exercise. Go up one more category, up to 149 minutes. How does it go? Down still further, down to like 50% and about 60%. So what does that tell us? And then if you go up to 150, then it goes down a little bit further, which is, right around 50 to 60% of risk. So if you exercise 150 minutes per week, and you're starting from a sedentary position, how much have you cut your risk of dying prematurely? In half, basically. In half. That's 150 minutes per week. So if I exercise 5 times per week, how much do I need to exercise per day to reach 150? Half an hour. Half an hour a day to do what? To cut my risk of dying from any cause in half. Was that a good investment? Yes. How much is that going to cost you a lot of times it's costing us the cost of some sneakers and enough to keep warm, right? Or no, if you want to get fancy, then you can do that. This is available. You can spend a lot of money on exercise equipment. You can put an entire gym in your basement, all that. What I'm telling you, it's not necessary. You can go outside and walk, or if it's wintertime, then we can figure out clever ways to do something else. And I'm telling you right now, you Michiganders, and I'm pointing to myself too, you need a winter plan. Because I talk to you guys after winter in the springtime, and a whole bunch of you say the same thing. Oh, I feel like a slug. I haven't done anything the entire winter. And now here's the really sad part. I'll say about half of them I'll talk to, and they'll say, oh yeah, I got a complete gym in my basement. Okay. So there's a problem with motivation, right? Here's the thing. With exercise, you're going to have to force yourself to do it for a while. Now, after a period of time, it will become more enjoyable to you. But for that first 10 days, maybe a month or something like that, it's just like putting the collar on, putting the leash, and get yourself, like taking the dog for a walk. You got to kind of take that attitude. But it's well worth it. You can see right here. This is just death from any cause. Now we talked a lot about mood. There's fasting and interval walking. That's interesting. One more thing. I like to talk about walking and walking speed because so many people like walking. Walking is a great form of exercise. It's low impact, and you can do it in a lot of places for a lot of the year, and you can be social about it too. So you can go on a walking club, lots of good stuff involved with walking. So when I learned about walking speed, this is like my favorite slide that I show everywhere now. Walking speed is exceptionally important. It's a very strong predictor of a whole bunch of things. This is just survival. So this is like 5-year survival. So if you're walking at 0.9, that gray line is people who are over 85. The red line is people who are 75 to 84 years old. And the blue line is those who are 65 to 74. Okay, so if you're walking at 0.9 when you're over 85 years old, actually you'll have only a 25% chance of 5-year survival, right? Okay, now the red line obviously is much higher, 75 to 84, and the blue line higher. Now, if we go up to say 1.8 to 2.2, where are we at then? Okay, the gray line is now over 50%, a little bit. The red line's still going up, and the blue line's still going up too. So as our walking speed goes up, what happens to our chance of 5-year survival? Going up, right? Okay, look all the way out to the end. Over 3.1. Look at that. Look at that tight little group up there. Where are the 85-year-olds? Right there. They're right there with people who are 20 years younger. Over 90%. Over 90% 5-year survival. Wow. This is incredible. So it's a good idea to work on elevating your walking speed. Now, I want to warn you, if you start out too fast, then your risk of falling is going to go way up. So it's best just to walk at whatever speed you can do right now, and then take a nice, steady improvement that doesn't put you at risk of falling or hurting yourself, because you're likely to do that if you try to go from 0 to 100 too fast. Okay, so if you're going to do this and you're going to take the attitude, I'm going to improve, do it wisely and make a nice long plan. What I like to tell people is let time be your ally. A lot of times we want to go, oh, I got to do this fast. Don't do that. A lot of times we hurt ourselves doing that. Let time be your ally. So make a nice, steady plan, and then you can improve from there. And there's going to be times when you plateau. There's going to be times when you've worked real hard. Say you start at 0.9 and you work real hard and you get your walking speed up to 2.7. Well, that's still pretty good. Look at the gray line there. You've already, now you're up around 70%. You've done some really good work there. And usually when we reach a plateau, we're kind of there for a little while, but sometimes we can go on from there too. Now, it could be that that's all the higher we go, and that's okay. It's a good place to be. But a lot of times you can go on from that plateau and you can gain some more. So what if...
Would jogging be considered walking? I mean, is that a whole different thing or what?
Jogging is more intense than walking. So you're going to get fit faster. And in a lot of ways, it's better. You saw that first graph I put up there? Let's go back to that. So you see the red line is moderate and the blue line is vigorous. Jogging would be going into the vigorous side. So you can see it actually has a 5 to 10% advantage over moderate. So there is an advantage to the more vigorous exercise. So jogging is going to help you, but it also can be harder on your knees, as we know. So if you jog every day on cement, then it could be that over time it's going to be hard on your knees and your ankles and other joints. Now, if you jog on something softer, like if you can get out in the forest where there's a little bit of cushion to that, that would be an advantage. And by the way, anytime you can get out into green space, I'll touch on that in a minute. Don't let me forget about that. It's one of my favorite subjects, obviously. Okay, so, but if you get up to the plateau, if I went for a long hike and I had to work really hard and I got to this space where it's elevated and I can have a nice view, what do I think I should do on that plateau? Enjoy the view. That's what I say. Enjoy the view. You've worked hard to get to that plateau and it's perfectly fine to hang out there. Now, if you have aspirations to go higher, maybe you have to do what our friend here is talking about, which is starting to jog instead of walk, something like that. But anyway, yes, if you can get outdoors for exercise, here's my exercise hierarchy. My exercise hierarchy would be indoor exercise is good. And sometimes we have to do that, especially like Michigan in the winter, right? This is kind of the way it is. Next up from that would be outdoor exercise. That would be improvement, because what do I get outdoors that I don't get in here? Sunshine, fresh air. That sunshine, by the way, has a bunch of good stuff in it, like near-infrared radiation. Have you heard about this in melatonin? This is incredible. So when we go out into that sunshine out there, there's near-infrared radiation. That's one of the wavelengths, and it penetrates our skin and goes into our cells. And what does it do? During the day, it stimulates our cells to produce melatonin during the day. Now, at nighttime, we have a different melatonin production that involves the pineal gland in the brain, right? So in the morning, when we get bright light, that produces serotonin. When we get into a condition of darkness at night, then that serotonin is converted into melatonin in the brain, right? And then we have melatonin at night. So the Lord made what? 2 different mechanisms for production of melatonin. One to guard us during the night through the pineal gland, and another during the day through our cells, which is produced by what? That beautiful stuff right there. Just by getting out in the sunshine. And it actually produces more during the day than our brain produces at night. It's very strong stuff. Green exercise. So when we get out there, there's something about green that is soothing, but also all of these trees in the forest are attacked by stuff as well. They're attacked by pathogens all the time. You've seen trees get sick and die, right? And they are attacked by insects. So they produce something through their leaves that helps protect them from the pathogens that can hurt them and from the insects. So that, a lot of those are like essential oils, like pinene and limonene. When you go by a tree or you break open some of your needles and smell that wonderful stuff, that's those like essential oils. So that stuff protects that tree from infection. It'll actually kill some of the pathogens and kill some of the insects. So if I go stand next to that tree and I breathe in those things, do you think that's good for me or bad for me? That's good. Really good. Now, in the literature now, they're calling these phytoncides, PHYTONCIDES. Look that up sometime. What we know about those? Yep. Exceptionally good for us. It's going to help you lower your blood pressure, just feel nice and calm, helps us with mood. Good stuff. So what was that first guy's name? The first guy to ever live on the planet here? Adam. Now, what building was he assigned to when he was first made? The garden. Yeah, there was no building. It was the garden. He put him in this place that's best for him, right? I believe, I can't prove this, but I believe right in our DNA. When we get out in that stuff, it's good for us. Only makes sense to me that the Lord would make us and then put us in the environment that's best for us. I think it's right engineered into our bodies. So walking speed, yes, that's something to think about. Sedentary time. Oh, I like this one too. So dementia is another, it's a big problem now. It's, I think, the 6th leading cause of death in the United States now. What we know about exercise and dementia, well, it's definitely going to lower your risk. So this is relative risk of dementia with physical activity. So this is compared to those, it's not on here, but it should say that. This is compared to those who are sedentary, who are not getting any exercise. So their bar would be 100, just like on the previous one. Compared to themselves, their relative risk is 100. Doesn't mean 100% of them are going to get dementia. It just means compared to themselves, it's 100%. So if I go from completely sedentary, no exercise, to light exercise, it goes down to what number? 53. So just by going from sedentary to light exercise, what did I do to my risk of dementia? Cut it in half. Cut it in half. 53. So that's like 100 to 150 minutes of exercise a week. If I go down to moderate, then it improves a little bit more. But look about high exercise. These are ones that have about 300 minutes or more of exercise. Intentional exercise. Consistency. That's the thing with exercise. Consistency. Actually, with all lifestyle, obviously. What happens to their risk then? 29%, which means 70% of their risk of dementia completely gone just by exercising 300 or more minutes a week. Was that worth it? Yeah. If someone had a pill out there, if any pharmaceutical maker had a pill right now and they said, you take this and it's going to reduce your risk of dementia by 70%, would they be selling that? Hotcakes. Zillions, I don't know how much money they would make off that. We can get it just by getting out there. Pretty much free stuff. This is really good news for us. Here we go. Actually, let's talk about this one too. So this is cortisol and risk of CVD death. So I wanted to talk about this because cortisol is actually, I would say, associated with our mood. Because if we get stressed out, if we start to get really anxious and fall into more of a fight or flight type of mentality, then our cortisol does what? Goes up. So if say I'm out on a stream and I'm walking, having a nice day, and then suddenly there's a big rainstorm upstream, and here comes a flash flood. So maybe for the next hour or two, I have to do all kinds of really physical things, climb hillsides and trees and grab stuff and hold things. Am I going to want cortisol at that point? Oh, yes. That's going to help me do that. Sustained level of high physical activity. Muscles are strong, awareness, breath, everything. That's what we want. But on a daily basis, we don't want cortisol high. It's not good for us. So what have we found? Well, a low level, again, so 1 is a low level that's compared to itself. That's why its risk is 1. But if I go up to a medium level of urinary cortisol, what does it do? 2.9, triple the risk for going up to a medium level of cortisol. What if I go up to high level of risk? 5 times. So if I'm walking around all day with this in this fight or flight type of feeling where I'm kind of scared, you know what I mean? 5 times risk of cardiovascular disease death. So exercise will definitely help you with this, but I mentioned this in the church because my personal feeling is that in terms of my own life, the thing that has helped me the most to stay away from this fight or flight kind of thing is the knowledge that there is a ultra powerful God who's on my side, right? And that is so comforting to me. It's like I went through years, most of my life, not knowing if he was even real or thinking he was some kind of harsh taskmaster. All that is wrong. He's the guy who's fighting for us all of the time. And that helps me to keep my cortisol levels low. I'm thinking. I've never actually done a urinary cortisol test. Maybe I should. Okay. This was the most recent review study I could find on exercise and mood. And it's compared to an SSRI. So an SSRI is a selective serotonin reuptake inhibitor. That's a big long name for what we know as Prozac or Zoloft, others like that, which actually help people. Those are a good thing, and I'm glad people are helped by that. But let's look at it in comparison to what some forms of exercise actually do. So anything in the pink range there, anything outside of the pink range to this side of it is actually a more positive response. So the further that little dot goes in that direction, the more powerful the response. So where's the SSRI? Not bad. It's right outside the pink, so it has a good response. But what's the one just up from that? Aerobic exercise and strength. Better or worse response than the SSRI? Actually better. Same with Tai Chi, mixed aerobic exercises. Strength, aerobic exercise plus therapy, exercise plus SSRI. How'd we do there? Those two together are pretty powerful. Yoga. Then we have the second one from the top, which I've talked about a little bit already. Cognitive behavioral therapy. That's where we're monitoring our thoughts. But what's above that? Wow. Walking or jogging turned out to be more powerful than anything else. Is that really good news for us? Yeah, exceptionally good news. That means I can take walks in that beautiful stuff right there, and it's as good as practically anything else for my mood. Wow. We're not hearing this from the drug manufacturers, right? You know, and I don't want to berate those guys too bad because they're doing what they can. I think they're benevolent, you know, and they want to help us, and they have a certain mode that they're in. But for me, I'm like, what if we just tell people to exercise and eat right, drink enough water, monitor our thoughts? What if we did that? Then maybe we don't even need that other thing. The beauty of the program that I'm involved in, Dr. Nedley, is that we look for the source of the problem, right? So if I'm in pain, you can give me a pain reliever, and that takes care of the pain, but it hasn't really cured the wound. We want to take care of that, right? That's why the CBT thing is so important. So if we get down to the point where we actually have found the source of the problem and we can eliminate that, wow, then we have no need for these other things. And if I can just live a lifestyle that actually takes care of that, beautiful. And this is very, very achievable. I've seen it every month now. I go out there, I've seen it hundreds of times, probably close to 1,000 times now. Very powerful stuff. That is, let me just go on to a different slideshow here. Okay, just some general facts about depression. I put this actually presentation together a couple of years ago. So I just want to give you some general facts about depression. So you can see over 300 million worldwide, which is just an astounding number that suffer with depression now. What is the number one cause of disability in the world? Depression. Yeah, now it is. Two-thirds of the Americans who have depression are undiagnosed, and 35 of those who are diagnosed received no treatment. Well, that's some rates of depression. You can see those are going up. This was in response to COVID. So this was during COVID, and people wanted to see where I was at. You can see how the numbers are going up there. This was all during COVID. Youth with depression. Long-term impacts of future health and wellness. That's what I experienced. I had a lot of depression when I was a youth, and more adversities and adversities in adulthood, additional mental health conditions, low educational attainment problems with intimate relationships. Insomnia precedes 69% of adolescent depression. So the majority of the time that you see your adolescents getting depressed, it's coming. They're stopping to sleep first, and something is stopping them from sleeping. And what is that? Anxiety. Something is bothering them. So if we can get to and what is that about? Anxiety is about our thoughts, right? So if we can get to the point where we can help these people to monitor their thoughts, and we can get rid of the anxiety or make it at least much more manageable, then this cascade, we can interrupt that thing and hopefully interrupt the mental health crisis that is going on with the youth, because it's huge now. We see more and more people, more and more young people that are suffering with depression. So here's the trends in antidepressant use. This tells you something about what's been happening in our country in terms of depression, because it's 7 to 8-fold higher than it was in 1994. 1994 was around 2% of adults in the United States, men and women. By 2008, it was 8.9. That's all of the adults. The purple line is females, the green line is males, the red line is all adults. So by 2018, 13.8% of the adult population was using an antidepressant, 8% of men, but how much of women? 18.6%. So what does that mean? That means that nearly 2 out of 10 adult females that you see walking around every day in the United States on an antidepressant. Wow. I mean, someone's making a colossal amount of money, right? I mean, let's just face it. They are making a colossal amount of money off this. What if we can go in a different direction that's relatively cheap? Now, when you first do it, it's going to cost you some money to do this. But once you get that lifestyle in place, it's I wouldn't say a breeze, but I have to live it, as I know what will happen to me. I know if I go back to my old way, I'll slip down into depression. No doubt about it. Omega-3, you've probably heard of the omega-3 fatty acids. So this is what you would get from the long chain fatty acids come from fish mostly. The ones that come from like flaxseed, you probably heard to take flaxseed and chia seed, nuts and things like that. That is a shorter chain omega-3, which is still very good for you. But what we know about that is that omega-3, that short chain, which is called alpha-linolenic, it's ALA, alpha-linolenic acid, it will be converted in your body to the long chain, which is really good news. The thing is, the conversion isn't that much. So you have to keep up on it on a day-by-day basis, because your conversion rate is not very much, especially for males. For males, the one study I saw was like below 5%, and females was, I think, double of that, probably for childbearing, I imagine. So, and another thing to consider about the omega-3, and very important for us nowadays with the American diet, is the abundance of omega-6 fatty acid. So omega-6 is important too. We need that. And the ratio of the two in our diet should be like 2 to 1 to 4 to 1. We can have 4 omega-6 to every 1 omega-3, and we'll be just fine. The problem is when we get up to the level it's at now. What do you think the level in the American diet is right now? 16 to 1. 16 to 1. So what's the problem with that? Well, the problem is, what we know is that if you get too much omega-6, it does make you more susceptible to cardiovascular disease, but I believe there's also a mental impact because the omega-3 is blocked from its conversion to the long chain by omega-6. So if you go into the store and you look on the label and you want to see how much omega-6 compared to omega-3 is in this food, can you find it on the label? You cannot. You would have to know the individual ingredients. So what is boosting our omega-6 so high in the American diet? What's that? Fast food. What's in the fast food? Processed food. What's in the processed food? You're getting closer. What's that? Vegetable oil, certain vegetable oils, right? And you can go and find that list. The cottonseed oil. There's several of them that are very common in the processed foods right now. That's what's boosting it. That's what's boosting it. And they're in the fast food. They're in a lot of the processed foods. So that's why it's important for us to know this. I think there should be legislation to show that, because right now you can look at the label and go, oh, polyunsaturated fatty acids, which is omega-3 and omega-6. Wow, there's a whole bunch in this compared to the saturated fat. I'm going to buy this because it's really good for me. Well, that's misleading a lot of times because actually what you got in there is a whole bunch of omega-6 compared to the omega-3. So learn those oils, and that's going to help you because we want omega-3. Omega-3, obviously, improved frontal lobe function, improved sense of well-being, improved vigor and energy, improved reaction time, improved attention, improved test scores, improved mood, better control of thoughts and behavior, and less impulsivity. That's a short list for omega-3 stuff. That's just the brain. There's a whole bunch more that is going to be helping us for our heart health as well. Let's see. Mental disease, additional benefits, omega-3 fatty acids. So fish, I guess I should mention this. Fish has long been a good source of that, but now we know that there's a couple of concerns with fish. One is that there's cholesterol in all fish, and the other thing is that all fish are contaminated now too. So the mercury is a big problem, especially for mental health. So that's why a lot of guys are saying, yeah, it used to be that we would say fish and fish oil. That's a good thing. But you can get better sources now. So there's algae oil you can get if you want to take a supplement. That would be better than the fish oil because you would avoid both of those things. You would avoid both cholesterol and the contamination that comes from the fish itself with the mercury and other things. There's lots of stuff that comes from fish nowadays. When I worked in the I worked at this place called Abernathy Fish Technology Center down in Washington. It was a great place to work. And this guy I worked with, he fished a lot out on the Columbia River. And he talked about eating those fish. And he was starting to think about catching and eating sturgeon. And I had saw a video about the amount of contaminants that come from sturgeon, and it's super high. Why? Well, where does the sturgeon live? Right on the bottom, right? So he's sucking on sediments all day. So contaminants tend to stick to little tiny pieces of sediment that's in the water column. And then what happens to those? Yeah, they drop right to the bottom. The sturgeon goes on like a vacuum cleaner, sucks that stuff up, and sturgeon live a long time. They can live a long time, decades. So what happens to all those contaminants in the body? How do they get rid of them? That's when you eat them. That's the only way they're getting rid of those, really. They just build up. So bioaccumulation. So I quoted the number to this guy, super smart man. I mean, PhD, and exceptionally intelligent man. And what did he do? That. I was like, dude, you're that. He just didn't want to hear it. I was just shocked. I was like, okay, whatever. I tried. Yeah. So other sources are better. If you have to go with flaxseed, chia seed, that's good. And just keep that up every day. And then your body's going to convert that over. Remember, it doesn't do it at a very high rate. So you have to keep it up on a daily basis. 2 tablespoons of ground flaxseed That's pretty good. Let's see. Look at that. Oh, this was a survey of an interesting group of people. They're called Adventists. Survey of 138 healthy Adventist adults. What did we find? Depression and anxiety score scale. Look at that. The omnivores compared to the vegetarians. Just saying, the omnivores were double in terms of depression and anxiety. And another one, I got that on here. I don't. Well, there was another study that showed basically the same thing, which is the more fruit and vegetables you eat, the better your mood is. Tryptophan. Okay, that's another important nutrient. Does anybody know what tryptophan is used to build in our body? Serotonin. Yeah, so we need to make sure that we get enough tryptophan. This is a bit of an older slide. That tofu now is down further on the list. This was from an older study that had, or an older source that had tofu actually rated a little bit too high. Now I would rate pumpkin seeds as about the best thing because of the so many other things that it has. Notice the second one on there, gluten flour. So gluten flour is a good thing if you're okay with it. Now, there's quite a few people who aren't okay with gluten, so then we'd have to go with a different source. But for those who are okay with it, gluten is very high in tryptophan. Sesame seeds, almonds, black walnuts, black-eyed cowpeas, all excellent source. We were told that whole milk is a good source at one time, not so much as compared to those other vegetarian sources.
That's a roasted.
That roasted,
The raw doesn't.
they're fine. Yeah. That was the ones that were tested. So when I get these numbers, these come from the FDA. So they've looked at all these different laboratory results and put them together, and then they list them on here. You can go through and search, which I've done a lot of, and that was what people eat, is they eat the roasted ones more, and that's why they tested that. So that's why I said roasted. But the raw ones are fine too. Tyrosine. Nutritional causes. Okay, so nutritional causes of depression, also obviously not enough tryptophan, dietary tyrosine, which is one of the amino acids. We need to keep that one up, and low folate levels. In fact, if your folate is low, it's going to be hard to treat your depression until you get that up. That's one of the things that we can go through all kinds of stuff and help you. But if you're not responding, then it could be that your folate is just not high enough. And obviously omega-3. There it is right there. Look at that. More fruit and vegetable, more life satisfaction. Servings of fruit and vegetables per day versus life satisfaction. Look at that. With each serving of fruit and vegetables per day, what happens to their life satisfaction? Up to up, and up. End of slideshow. Okay. So I'm going to go back to one more. This is another one. Now, I talked earlier today about negative thoughts. Let's go to this first. So water is exceptionally important. Now, what percentage are we of water? What do you think? What's that, 75? Yeah, I hear different numbers. I've done some research on this, and they're all saying different stuff. There's no consensus, but something like that, 70%, something like that. Our brain, higher or lower than the rest of our body? Higher, yeah. So we definitely need to make sure that our water intake stays up. So if we're dehydrated, what happens? Difficulty staying focused, short-term memory function is impaired, long-term memory, diminished ability to perform mental arithmetic, mental fatigue, headache, depressed mood, all of those things just from what? Just from not having enough water. So carry your water bottle around with you is what I would recommend. Where's mine? Right there. The thing is, just be ready. You're going to lose them. If you're anything like me, you're going to lose them. So I travel around. I go through several a year. It's kind of a point. I laugh about it now. So I got to one point. I'll just tell you a little story. It's kind of fun. I put my name on it. I was tired of losing it. So I put my name and phone number in little stick-on letters around the top of my water bottle. And I went to Weimar and left it somewhere there, and I couldn't find it. I knew approximately where I left it, but I couldn't find it. So I thought, well, someone's going to find it here. They're going to see my name on there. Most of the people here know me, and they're going to give me a call. A year and a half later, I go back to the October program, and the director of the program says, "Here, I got a gift for you." And I'm like, wow, cool. Here's my water bottle. I'm like, where did you find it? So I was sitting over in the kitchen at the student center for a year and a half, right there. All people cooking all the time. They're right there in sight. So anyway, be prepared for frustration if you do the water bottle thing. It's still well worth it. One more story about the water bottle. And this one goes along the lines of God is way ahead of us and gives us what we need. And last year, camp meeting, where I first met Dan, had a new water bottle. I loved that water bottle. 34 ounces, metal, durable, had this cool woven handle out of paracord on it, had a little compass on it. It was the best water bottle. I really liked it. I remember walking around that camp meeting thinking, man, I like this water bottle. And I went by the Strong Tower radio booth, entered their drawing. A couple of days later, they called me up and said, hey, you won. I was like, wow, really? What'd I win? They said, come get your water bottle. I was like, okay. So I go there and I pick up that water bottle, that one right there. And I'm like, oh no, does this mean that I'm going to lose my water bottle? Next day, water bottle was gone. I'm like, you know what? God is just so far ahead of us. He's just so far ahead of us. This year, went there. My radiator had some problems. I could smell a little bit. I drove all the way from Lansing to the camp meeting. When I pull into and park there, the temperature gauge just goes. It's like the Lord just held his hand over it until I got there. And then I opened it up and I could see steam. I'm like, oh man. Opened it up, big fissure in the top. I was like, oh, well, at least I know where it's at. So then I just called up Amazon, had them deliver a radiator. And I can change it myself. It's pretty easy to do. But I needed some antifreeze. So I thought, well, I've got that cash in my wallet right here. So I'll use that to buy this antifreeze when I went over there. So Henry Escamilla, anybody know Henry? Henry's, I met him in California, actually, at that 4-month program I went to out there. He was one of the leaders there. And he's in Michigan now at Petoskey. Am I saying that right? And one other, he's a pastor now. So he said, oh, I'll give you a ride. So we're going over there to pick up the antifreeze. And he gives me some money. He said, the Lord impressed me to give this to you. I was like, okay, sure, thank you. So I go in there, put down the antifreeze, open my wallet to pay. The money's gone. Money's gone. It was stolen. I know pretty much when it was stolen. Does God know? He knows. And I'm so glad that happened to me because now I see how he takes care of us. It's like, man, I don't have to worry about too much. I do the work that he asked me to do. I work hard. He's going to take care of me. Anyway, little sideline on the water bottle. do carry the water bottle around. Dehydration, does hurt your executive functions too, obviously. So we want to keep up on that. Lifestyle hits. Long walks are good. So it usually takes about 10 days for exercise to improve our mood. Some said, I think there was another one that said it took only 7 days. Yeah, that one said 7 days. This one said 10 days. But it had the same effect as Zoloft in this, except there was a lot less relapse with the exercise. So this is just exercise. That's not considering all the other aspects of lifestyle that we conclude here. So this was 12,500 steps per day of exercise, which is 4.25 miles. And you can, depending on your walking speed, you can pretty much get that done. In the program we do out in California, we have people walk a lot more than that because they're getting 2 to 3 hours of exercise a day. So most of them are thinking 12,500 is actually an off day. Average is between 15,000 and 20,000. Interval training. Let's see. Yeah, there's the attitude you need to take about exercise. I would never do that to a dog, by the way, or a person. That is actually right there is an example of just a little bit of a sideline, but This guy just exercised for 10 days. This results from a step test. So the blue line up there is before he started exercising. The green line is after he had exercised for 10 days. So we have him step up on a step that's about 9 inches high for 3 minutes and then sit down. That's time 0. So his initial time 0 was what, 151 up there in the blue line? And he sat for 3 minutes and went down to 110. Then he exercised for 10 days, just 10 days. And then he did the same test again, same 3 minutes, sat down. What did it go up to this time? 111. And it dropped down to what? 59. 59. He dropped his heart rate by what, 10 and 51 beats. Wow. You think that added years to his life? Without question. Without question. And how long did it take? 10 days. 10 days. 10 days. Where have I heard that before, Dan? Isn't there some guy in the Bible who did something for 10 days, his first scientific study? Who was that? Daniel 1, right? He purposed in his heart that he would what? Not defile himself with the king's meat. Yeah, he made the decision to live that healthy lifestyle. And they said that they were found to be the best in the kingdom. Light's another thing that we can do that is simple. Definitely would recommend getting light early in the morning. That's the way we want to do it to help with our serotonin. Now, serotonin, what does that one do for us? That's a neurotransmitter. So how would that make us feel if I had adequate serotonin? Would I feel anxious or would I feel like a well-being? Yeah, well-being. This is the kind of the happy one where I feel like things are just good. You know, things are nice. That's where we're at with serotonin.
What's early in the morning?
Early in the morning, I'd say within 20 minutes of waking. Within 20 minutes of when you wake up. The sooner the better. So that when you wake up, it's also going to help with your circadian rhythm, because then your body's going to know as soon as it hits that bright light, you wake up in the morning, open up those curtains or put on a blue light or some really bright white light, your body's going to say, what? Guess it's time to get up, right? Yeah, so within 20 minutes, within 5 would be better, and give yourself a good dose of that. Now, certain times of the year, the sun isn't adequate, so then you have to be clever with some type of electric light source. You can get white light or blue light. They both work really good. But that's going to help you with the serotonin production. And the serotonin, as I said, was then later converted into what? Melatonin when it gets dark. So right before bed, you get in that nice dark atmosphere, and then your body goes, oh, must be time for bed. I better start converting this serotonin to melatonin so my body here can get a nice night's sleep, right? So, by the way, if you want to start your melatonin peak earlier, what might be a good thing for you to do? Think light now. What's that? Turn them down? Yeah, you can. So if you turn your lights down really dim to like it's where a dusk, so you're fooling your body, you're not fooling your body, but you're telling your body that it's a dusk time, then your body's like, okay, I guess it's time. So you can bring on your melatonin peak like an hour earlier. You can get way more melatonin during the night just by doing that. Is that going to be good for you? Without a doubt. Melatonin is super powerful antioxidant, does a whole bunch of great things in our body. So we definitely want to take advantage of that. Yeah, when we put this slide in there, just because I tell people, we, as humans, we come up with this thing. It's like, we discovered this. And I'm like, rediscovered it, I think is actually a better term. Because the Lord has been telling us forever, just like light here, truly the light is sweet and a pleasant thing it is for the eyes to behold the sun. Now, don't go out and stare at the sun, obviously. But he's been trying to lead us all along in language that is universal and applicable to all people who read this, right? He's not going to say, well, your pineal gland needs to be stimulated. What did 2,000 years ago, they're going to go, what? He's not going to do that. So he tells us in language that we can all understand, timeless language. And that's, in fact, the beauty of CBT. These guys who are very good, Beck and Ellis, discovered it back in, I think it was the 50s. And they popularized it, which is a very good thing, by the way. I'm glad they did that. But I would say, actually not new. Let's read what the Bible says, and you'll see actually that it's right there. Yes?
Blue blocking glasses help you think.
Blue blocking? Yes, it could. So if you wear those late, then it would block blue light. So if you have exposure to blue light late, then your body thinks what? Still daylight. So it's not time for me to convert, right? Not time for me to get all tired, not that kind of thing. So yeah, if you block the blue light, that would be better. So yeah, if you have,
Would that be similar to turning your lights though?
yeah, it would be similar to that. Now, some people may have to work on a computer late or something like that, so they would want to try to reduce the amount of blue light that's coming off the screen. The better idea, of course, is just to avoid the screen time altogether, because what we know about screen time is, if the later you do it, the poorer your sleep is going to be for several reasons. It could stimulate you by the content of what's on there, something that makes you anxious, but also just the light itself is going to tell your body, look at all the blue light, must be still time to be active. Obviously, eating late would be a big deal too. Try to avoid food for as long as possible before bed, and you're going to do the best you can there. That's going to help you. Obviously, avoid caffeine. Along the lines of sleep, obviously, light in the morning and dark at night is going to be a big thing too. Nutrition, make sure you have plenty of tryptophan. And that tryptophan conversion cascade also includes, I believe it's calcium, vitamin D, and vitamin B6. So there's several other nutrients that we want to make sure we have there as well, so that we can get that necessary conversion into serotonin and then into melatonin. Green spaces, talked about that a little bit already, gave you my own personal opinion in terms of hierarchy, and some of these are actually repeats. So that's really all I had in terms of the science right now for you. Wanted to tell you a couple of stories from what I've experienced out there, and these are relating to exercise. The first one is from a fella, we'll call him Steve. So Steve, when he came there, obviously hadn't been exercising very much. We put him on, Dr. Nedley often puts people on a fast, and we put Steve on the fast for the first couple of days, and Steve was very cranky about that, and he wouldn't want to go to the meetings even, so they said, Nathan, go down and get Steve out of his room. And I went down there and talked to Steve, and he was the only guy that the entire time that I've been there, 10 years, that I thought was going to take a swing at me. I thought he had that look on his face, like, I think this guy might actually take a swing at me. So I was like, whatever you want, brother. I'm not going to let you do that. I'm sure you'd feel sorry for it. Yeah. So I would walk with him during the exercise periods, and there's a couple of steep hills there at Weimar, and one is quite steep, and each day when we would go around that, we'd make multiple loops there in one exercise period, and each time we got to that, he would be like, oh, I just can't get my breath on this hill, and he was needing to improve his fitness. So we did that for 2 or 3 days, and he was doing that all the time. And then I lost track of him. He started to exercise with somebody else, and I was doing other things. And the last day, I'm walking up that hill with somebody else, and this guy goes running by me, running up the hill. And I'm like, Steve. And he's like, I'm doing it, man. He ran up that hill. How long did that take? 10 days. 10 days. Wow. Now, sometimes our improvement isn't that fast. We understand that. But I tell you what, if you stick with it, results like this can happen. One other lady came from Europe. We'll call her Sue. Sue came from Europe. They had me go pick her up at the airport. And so whenever that happens, I get a good chance to talk to people, see where they're at. She was struggling mightily with fatigue. She had some type of fatigue syndrome that was very severe. She had tried a whole bunch of things. And the language she was using was alarming, because she was talking in this way. She said, if this doesn't work, I don't know what I'm going to do. And talking more severe than that. So that's warning. That's big red flag warning for our program, right? Because people are depressed and they get desperate. So I'm like, okay, we're keeping an eye on you. She got there and had her do the step test. You step up and down for 3 minutes, and she could just barely do it. And it took all she had just to complete that. And instead of sitting down, she did something that I can. She laid down on the step like this after she did the step test. And I was like, oh my goodness. She was just so worn out by it. So for the first 3 or 4 days, we really had to rouse her out of her room to get her to go to stuff. You know, it was hard. She was just too tired. You know how it is? It must be just like that feeling when you're really sick. I had pneumonia once when I was 6 years old, or 6th grade. I never felt so tired in my life. It's really hard to do anything. And I imagine that's the way she felt all the time. So it's hard for her to get around. We had to kept knocking on her door. Come on, you need to get out. And finally, she started to do it. After 4 days or so, she was doing it on her own. We didn't have to get her out of her room anymore. Day 7, or something around there, as I was walking outside, I saw her walking with a group of people, and now she was smiling and laughing and conversing with them. I was like, that's really good. When we see that, it's like, okay, that is a good sign right there. So I keep track of everybody's steps, and whoever wins the most, gets the most steps in the program, gets a little prize. So we tell people that and kind of motivate them. How many steps do you think she averaged per day? 10,000? She averaged 17,000. 17,000 steps per day. And I was like, man, that is so good. Yeah, but she felt like she still needed to improve some more. So she came back to the next program, or maybe she skipped one, I'm not sure. It's either the next one or the one after that. She was there again, Sue was. I was like, okay. But this time, she was not lacking energy. In fact, now she was the group cheerleader. She was like, come on, you can do it. She was helping people out. It was awesome. How much do you think she averaged in that program? Close. What'd you say? 25, a little higher. 28. 28,000 steps a day. The girl who was sleeping on my step now averaging 28,000 steps a day. Wow. And she doesn't know. Well, anyway, her story is inspiring a lot of people. So that's the kind of turnaround we see there. And that's just the physical activity. What we see from people just turning around their lives is what keeps us coming back. It's addictive, honestly. I have to say, because I pick them up at the airport. So I see them when they're coming in. Yes, question. She was in her late 20s. Yeah, late 20s. Now, the fella who I showed you the heart rate improvement, he was in his 60s. Yeah. So I pick him up at the airport, and I see him, some people are really good about masking how they're feeling, and they'll kind of laugh and smile and have a good conversation. Others are kind of have the 10-mile stare, just kind of looking straight out. But then I get to take him back to the airport. And it's like, okay, things have changed radically. Now they're talking. It's interesting because you can go, when we start the program, we eat in the cafeteria, and there's 6 or 8 tables in there. And they're all, a lot of them isolate. Want to go there, want to go there, want to go there, want to go there, want to go there. And lately what we've seen is they push the tables together. So they can have this big group, and you walk in there and it's just like chatter. It's just like this beautiful chatter is going on. I just wanted to open up for questions. Any questions that you guys had about anything, really? I don't pretend to be ultimately knowledgeable about any of this stuff, but I have had some experience. So anything along these lines, any themes that you have any questions about, this would be there's one. The liquid flaxseed oil is good. Obviously when you extract an oil, then you have, I would say, not what's in the whole seed, right? So the fiber that you get from flaxseed would be gone, and possibly the other things that are good from flaxseed would be gone as well. But ground flaxseed and flax meal, I think it's the same thing. Right. 2 tablespoons per day.
Are you talking about
tablespoon, is that of the seed before?
Ground, after. After it's ground. Yeah. Yeah. So you can get ground flaxseed in the store. Just make sure you store it in the refrigerator or the freezer. It would go rancid faster than the whole seed. Yep.
So for serotonin, can you get it in liquid vitamin D, or does it have to be in the sun to be able to do like sun?
Yeah. So there are times you're going to have to, you're going to need the supplement.
And then serotonin, can you get serotonin from that too?
That was one of the things that's necessary for the conversion. So it itself doesn't have serotonin, but it is necessary for the conversion of, serotonin. So tryptophan to serotonin, that thing. So, yeah. And that's common for, people in the northern climates generally need, most of us up here are vitamin D. Is there another question? Yeah.
Melatonin, can you take that at night to sleep?
You can. People take melatonin. I would say with most things, it's better if you can get things from your diet or let your body produce it. So I would lean towards doing all that I could to make sure that there's enough produced, but there's no sin in taking it for a while to help you with your sleep. That's a question I'd have to look up. I believe there's some worries about taking it consistently for a long time and perhaps dosing things. And if your body's producing it, then you don't have to worry about that. But yeah, there's people that do it, and some of the supplements that we use in the program definitely have melatonin in it. Mm-hmm.
Someone wants to know if you can get serotonin from looking at pictures of cute animals.
Of cute animals? I haven't seen that study. That would be a good one to do. I'll tell you what.
We think you can.
I think there's something going on there. I don't think it's serotonin. I think that is dopamine's involved, but I think that is actually stimulation of your opioid system, because that's a reward system. So dopamine is related to that, because dopamine is actually the want neurotransmitter. So that helps us to want things, right? It's involved. Without it, we wouldn't want things and we wouldn't be very motivated. So people with low dopamine wouldn't be motivated to do much. But if you had dopamine, the things you like, dopamine kind of drives you to go get that thing, right? So with the animal pictures, it's like, hey, I like those animal pictures. So the dopamine is kind of driving you to do that, helping you to want that. And then you look at the picture, and then something else happens. What is that? That's the opioid system. That's a reward system. So you've heard of the opioid crisis. Same stuff. That's just getting it artificially, which is very dangerous, obviously, since we have all we need right up here, and you can get it just by looking at cute pictures of animals. All right. Yeah, I think you can. I think it's dopamine and opioid system, but there could be some serotonin involved.
You can have supplemental reaction if you get different supplements.
Can you have a reaction to supplements?
Yeah.
Oh, certainly. Yeah. So we're all different. So the problem with supplements is that sometimes they can get out of balance because, what's a study I've looked at? Beta carotene. So they know beta carotene is something that's very good for you. It's like what's in vegetables, carrots, things like that. So they took beta carotene out and gave people straight beta carotene supplements. And they did this study with them that lasted several years, and they looked at their cancer rates. And what they discovered was the people who took the beta carotene supplement had a higher rate of cancer. So why did that happen? We know beta carotene is good. Why would it cause that to happen? Because the beta carotene, when we eat it in the natural state, is in what? It's in the carrot, or it's in the squash, or it's in whatever else. And what else is in there with that beta carotene? All kinds of stuff, right? I mean, all kinds of supplement, all kinds of nutrients and vitamins, and they're all in there, and they're in a rate, in a balanced state. So we take that one thing out and we eat that one thing, then we could be taking a chance. So yeah, that can definitely happen. And that's why we would recommend, the whole food diet, whole food plant-based diet, because then you're just getting the whole foods and those supplements are in there in those whole foods, hopefully the way God made them. Yes. Yeah, go ahead.
I know someone else that wants to ask you, what's the best way to get calories?
Calories? Best way to get calories. Yeah, food, but what type of food, huh? Well, that's the question. What type of food would we use to get calories? Yeah. So if you want quick energy, then I would go with a fruit or something like that. So obviously getting too many calories is going to be a problem there. You're going to get into weight gain. And the type of food that we can eat that generally gives us a lot of calories quickly is going to be a processed food, like sugar. Lots of calories there, nothing else in it. But if you want calories quick, eat a bunch of sugar or eat a straight oil. Those are going to be, there's all kinds of ways to do that. So what would I say? It's the same old boring answer.
It's like a 9-year-old boy.
Yeah. So I would say same old boring answer, eat a whole food. Eat a whole plant-based food. So I would go with a banana. So if you're like feeling low on energy, banana, orange, apricot, any of those fruits that would have a lot of energy in them and just kind of get in your system relatively quickly, but not dangerously quickly. So if you watch the professional athletes nowadays, say Tiger Woods back in the day when he was dominant, if he was out on the course and he'd been out there and he played 12, 15 holes and he was feeling like he needed some energy, is he eating a Snickers bar? No, he's not. He's eating a banana or an apple or an orange or something like that because this guy's smart. At least he was, and not smart about some things, obviously. But he was smart about that. And these athletes know what they're doing there. So that's the way I would go. I would go with the whole food. And what I've found is that I just learned to appreciate them so much. I mean, when I think about foods now, if I had my choice of if you asked me right now that I could eat anything, at this moment, I would choose the golden kiwi. Has anybody had a golden kiwi? Chop those guys in half, spoon it out with a spoon. It's like eating 2 fruits in one. On the top, it's nice. It's kind of more mild and sweet. Get down to the center, it gets a little more tangy and tart. Golden kiwi, man, that's so good. So your appetite will adjust to those things. Back in the day, I would definitely choose a Snickers bar or something like that. But now, knowing what I know, and actually the flavor of those things is so intense. By the way, just a little boost for growing your own, because at home you can grow them a lot better. Yes?
Since our bodies were designed to live a lot longer than we live nowadays, I'm just curious why low impact exercise is always stressed so much. It seems like we should be able to do more.
Low impact exercise?
Well,
Yeah.
versus high.
Right. Well, I think part of the answers and part of your question there, which is we were designed to live a much longer, but unfortunately the design has been marred, right? So back in the day, yeah, you could run for as long as you want. And your knees are never going to feel a thing. But now we know different. I know it's true because I've hurt both of mine. I can't move laterally anymore. If I went out and tried to play basketball now with some kids, I'd have to make sure there's an EMT ready just to take me to the hospital because I know what's going to happen. I'm going to blow out my knee. I can run forward straight, fine, but my body is worn down. And that's why I think the emphasis on low impact exercise, for that reason, for the wear and tear that it has on our joints. Now, when we're younger, there's a trade-off, right? So maybe you're in a position where your body hasn't worn down, and you saw those 2 graphs there in terms of lifetime. The moderate exercise wasn't as good as the vigorous. So if you can do vigorous, and you can do it in a way that you believe, doesn't harm your body too bad, then I would say go ahead and go for that vigorous. But if you can't, don't feel bad about doing the moderate. Is there another question?
on it, I guess, well, apparently, studies have shown that if you take like melatonin pills before you go to sleep, and they help you go to sleep quicker, it will have little or no effect on how many times you wake up at night.
Oh,
It will have little or no effect on the total amount of hours of sleep you get.
okay. So the quality of sleep doesn't sound like it's actually improving much with that. Yeah. So sleep is a big deal for me because I struggled with it for so long. So I've studied a lot about it. And it's like we're studying. So I was like saying with the people I was eating with, you know, why make it complicated? Just go exercise until you're really tired. How did that work? It worked great for me. I did that for 2 years. You know, that's what got rid of my insomnia. It only took like a month or two. But not rocket science, right? If I'm really tired, I'm probably going to sleep better. Is that true? Yeah. Yeah. Then there's the other things that we can do. And,
What are some of the dangers like keto? Because some family members that are really pushing for keto diets.
a ketogenic diet. I think the ketogenic diet is, now, is that the one that's really high in animal products?
Yeah.
Okay, so there would be the danger that we know of. So obviously, there's a lot of studies to show the difference between a diet that has a lot of animal products and one that is based on plant foods. And the plant foods are going to score out a lot better. Still, lots of different things. What's that?
Very low in biochemicals, et cetera.
It is very low in fiber. So it would be high in saturated fat, animal saturated fat, which is dangerous. It's going to be high in iron if you're eating a lot of red meat, which can be a pro-oxidant and cause be a risk for cancer. It's got, the amino acid profile of that is going to be more on the, definitely on the acid side. So you've probably heard that we want to keep our bodies as alkaline as possible. If you're eating a whole bunch of meat, then you're going to be going over to the other side. And that's going to be problems with different things. Obviously, bones, calcium. Calcium is going to be taken out of your muscle and your bone and your muscle because it's going to try to buffer that whole thing. There's other things to worry about. Bioaccumulation. Animal products account for 95% of the persistent organic pollutants that we see. So that it accumulates in the animals. That's where we get 95% of it from. That we know is really going to boost your risk of type 2 diabetes, probably other things too. You have some friends who have another question?
I know someone that's doing the keto too, and you already mentioned the plant-based, you shouldn't expect really awesome results for like 10 days. Like, you have your time.
Sure, anything.
I wonder if these like keto diets and stuff, they might have perceived benefits a little bit faster or whatever. Do you know if there's like a different, or people are like, wait, this one seems to work, that one doesn't?
Yeah, that could be. It could be. It could be that you would lose weight faster with the ketogenic diet. So ketosis is actually a pretty good thing for your brain. So that's maybe not a positive thing about it. But when we do anything, we have to figure out the things that are positive and the things that are negative. So I can find studies that show that drinking alcohol a little bit is actually going to lower your risk of heart disease. But what about everything else? Risk of cancer, just multiple things. So that would be it. Yeah, so there's some good things about it, but in the balance, is it better or is it worse? I'd say it's worse, especially compared to the plant-based diet.
Well, I don't mean to say you should do it. I'm just meaning like if we are telling people like, hey, you should do this, and you're like, well, that doesn't seem to work. It's like, well, these are differences. Like,
Yeah, so
after months, like it's definitely better. But like,
sure. I mean,
like you might be like, I haven't eaten like meat in a long time, but you might, I don't know, if you do something wrong, you might feel like more hungry or something, or I don't know.
with the
There's
plant,
some things that you might encounter with people that try other things, and this is a thing they're not expecting short term.
yeah. So that,
Diet, though, is the whole thing is about weight loss, which is a totally different goal than
yes.
health.
Yes, right. So, I've met people that have that mindset, and I tell them just what I told you about all the dangers that's going to come from eating that much animal products. And they're like, yeah, but the weight's coming off. So, okay, well, we can get that weight off you the same way, or maybe not the same way, but it'll come off. It's just going to take a little longer. And for me, it's like, it's just one of the diet fads, which is, okay, is it sustainable? Is this something that you're going to do for the rest of your life? And is it going to be good for you? With a plant-based diet, I can say, absolutely, you can do it for the rest of your life, and it's going to be good for you. Can you eat that much animal products for your rest of your life? Is it going to be good for you? Definitely not. Now, you might lose weight faster. Sure, that could happen. But, we want the long-term approach, we want to be edgy. So I do see this. I have talked to people about this, definitely. And I tell them that, but, they have their priorities, right? Now, hopefully they would come around and realize, not the best way.
We know of a person who's trying to lose some weight and they've been, I think it's a keto or keto diet, whatever, where they eat just meat.
Yes.
And if they go through that, I mean, obviously they're going to have more higher risk of heart attack, other things, diabetes and everything.
Yeah.
What else can they do to try to, or what can we
Have an alternative?
to them that they could not stick with a whole meat diet and get something that is effective, that they can see results in, let's say, 10 days?
Yeah. So, as our friend here said, you may not get results that fast, but, we do a whole food plant-based diet with a lot of exercise in the program. We see people drop 10 to 15 pounds in 10 days. So we know it can happen pretty fast. That's what I would recommend is most adults don't need 2 meals. So eat just 2 meals. Eat a nice, make breakfast your biggest meal of the day. Eat a sensible lunch. Don't eat anything else the rest of the day. Only drink water. No snacks in between. Get plenty of exercise, and you should drop weight. Because a lot of times we eat that big evening meal, right? We're slugging who knows how many calories in our body, and your body's like, yes, let's go do something. And we're like, no, going to bed. So what's the body got to do with all that? It's got to slug it away somewhere, which it does. So then we gain a lot of weight. So even if you have the same amount of calories, try this. Okay, don't try this. But this is what happens. They've done this study. Same amount of calories, but instead of having the big meal in the morning, you have the big meal in the evening. So you're kind of skipping breakfast, but you're putting all those calories in the evening. What's happening? They're gaining weight. Same amount of calories, but because of the timing of it, our body slugs it away. So that's what I would recommend. Intermittent fasting, 2 meals a day, whole food plant-based diet, no snacks in between, plenty of exercise. That's going to work for just about everybody. Now, some people may have an issue with, say, a thyroid issue or some other interesting disease. That could happen that they wouldn't respond because of that. And then you have to really get into something specialized with your physician. But what we know about the rank and file as people is if you do that, those things I mentioned right there, you're going to lose weight. And it's not just, like I said, in those 10 days, we see people lose 10 pounds or more commonly. So yeah, that's a pretty good weight loss. If you can lose, just 5 pounds a month is a good rate. And that would just be how much a week, just over a pound a week. That's actually a good weight. How much have you lost if you continue that sensible lifestyle for a year? 60 pounds. Wow. 2 years, 120 pounds. Most of us don't need to lose that much weight, but you might. The thing is just keep with it. Do this sensible thing that you know is good for you and just write it out. Let time be your friend, Try to do things so fast. That's our society, right? We want it quick. We want it hot. We want it now. And I don't want to have to sacrifice anything. Well, we get in trouble when we do that, obviously. So good question. Thank you for asking that one, by the way. Hey. Okay, well, thank you. Yes.
There was a slide towards the end that talked about something that negative ions present in.
Oh, you saw that. I didn't talk about that. Okay. So negative ions are present in ocean surf, waterfalls, after a thunderstorm, forest. Yeah, any of those places you're going to find negative ions. They tend to be very good for your mind. Yeah, calming. That's why I'm from Western Washington, so I always tell people, get out in the rain, man. It's good. Get out there. Oh, yes. Yeah, so Dr. Nedley definitely recommends that. Blue areas are good. Yeah, there's definitely research to show that blue areas and green areas are going to help you in terms of lowering your risk of several diseases. I think they did a Dutch study where it lowered the risk of like 15 different diseases. Anybody who was closer to a green space where they lived and spent time had a much lower risk. Yeah.
Those water bottles, you said it's metal. Maybe you don't wash them out enough. They always taste a little bit like metal.
Oh, yeah. I think
Is
it's,
that a real thing, or is that just
no, I think that's real.
or I got
Yeah. Well, I think there's something to that. I don't know. I haven't seen any studies on that. I've thought about that myself, but yeah, I can have a taste of that. I think it could be the quality of the metal too, honestly. If you get a different type of metal. I try to avoid aluminum because I just don't know what's going on with aluminum. There's been, speculation that aluminum has a effect on our mental health, especially Alzheimer's disease. I studied up on that, and I couldn't find anything that was substantial. But we do know this: aluminum. They don't know of any use of aluminum in the body. We don't know. We've never found anything that aluminum is used for in the human body. So that told me, well, maybe good to avoid it then, because foreign thing, body's maybe going to try to kick it out. What if it doesn't? I don't know. So, yeah, I think it's.
with a compass, does that help?
I don't know.
Just positive.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if you've heard of this thing called grounding.
Yes.
I gotta walk through that.
Yeah. So, yeah, I was just talking yesterday with some people about that, about grounding, the doctors that I work with, and they're all, I don't know, doesn't seem to be it's kind of speculation. I think it's speculation, but I know this: I like walking in my bare feet, like on the sand at the ocean, or like when I'm on the river walking on rocks. It feels nice on my feet, and it does have a pleasant kind of a mental effect, kind of a soothing thing. I'm in touch with nature, that kind of thing. So for me, I'd say in that way, it's good. So I would call grounding in that way. Yeah, that seems positive. Now, some other thing where you're actually getting some type of electric field, I don't know how much of that is real. But Ellen White talks about the electrical nature of the soil. Have you ever seen that? Yeah, she talks about the electrical nature of the soil. So there is something to the electrical nature of rocks and soil and things like that. Whether we get any benefit from it from walking barefoot, I don't know. I don't know about that. I like it. I have to agree. I like it. I think it's a good thing to do, honestly. Was there one more question over there? Oh, okay. No, there you go. Yeah, the glass. Yeah. No, for the metal bottle. All right. Well, thank you everybody for attending today. I hope that this helped you some. I want to encourage you to do your own study. So I'm a research junkie, and I actually do research for doctors, and I built my own database, and that's how I'm able to do this stuff. I'll tell you this: you can do it yourself. You can go right online, and whatever you're interested, you can go find it there. So I encourage you to do that. And I think this is what will happen if you do that. If you want to educate yourself in a certain area and you think it's important, go do that. And then let the Lord bring you to the person that needs that. And I believe that will happen. I believe that He will set that up. So it'll end up, you'll definitely have a good, warm feeling about that. Not only that you know it, but also that you help somebody else out. Mm-hmm. Yes.
So, you talked about these people that were in your program.
Sure.
Okay, so where is your program? How long, where is that?
That program is in California. That's a 10-day residential program. Yeah. So there's different, options, so to speak, for the Nedley program. There's an online program. You can just do it right online. There's the residential program out there. Now, the difference is the residential program is very powerful. You got Dr. Nedley out there. You got your own CBT counselor. You've got your own spiritual counselor. You've got support staff of like 10 people that are making sure that you stay on track. We're making sure you get out of your room. It's like boot camp, basically. It's like depression, anxiety boot camp. We make sure that you're immersed in the lifestyle so that when you leave, and you paid money, believe me, it's an expensive program. You go out there and I drive you to the airport and drop you off and I ask you a question, do you know what to do? You hopefully will say, oh yes, yeah, you clearly showed me what I need to do. Then we've done good work. But that's the advantage of the residential program. You have all that support and you're going to know exactly what you need to do. Now, the online program, you end up doing the same thing, but it can take longer. Obviously, you don't have Dr. Nedley to talk to. You don't have a CBT counselor right there. You don't have the spiritual counselor. You may have support from people around you, which is good. But if you do what the program says, actually, you could actually, I want to say this. Yeah, you could probably improve in the same time because we're actually doing the same things. You end up doing the same thing. So it could happen. It's just harder because you don't have the support. So it's easier to drift, right? You're not used to doing it. So at home, it's like, I'm not going to do it. Not out there. If you don't do it out there and you're not showing up, guess who's on the door? I am. Time for your exercise. See, it's right here on your schedule. I do that every program. I hear all kinds of excuses, and I just expect it now. So those are the two main ones. There's also some churches will do the what we call the community program, which they'll meet once a week for 8 weeks and facilitate the program, which is very similar to the online program, except that you have the advantage, I think, in that because you have real living people around you meeting once a week and supporting you, calling on you, and things. They're all good. They're all good. Yep. You end up doing the same thing with all of them. Go on, Dan.
All right, so praise the Lord. And, you said that we're here, and first, there's a lot, but you said it right. That's the question. We're gathering all this wonderful information for our health, right? And it's kind of like the gospel. It's not just for us. It's the Lord's, it is the Lord's plan. And the point that all of his people, at some level, are medical missionaries.
Amen. Yeah.
And Lord, we thank you for that. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. I enjoyed being here. It was good.
Thank you.
I always enjoy meeting new people.